Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Speaking About Speaking with myself, Jackie Goddard, and my fabulous guest, Rebecca Leppard. Hello, Rebecca.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone. I love the title Speaking About Speaking because literally it is speaking about speaking.
Absolutely, that's what I love to do is speak about speaking, and to have
Yeah.
guests like you that I know we're going to have a fabulous conversation. So, Rebecca, for those that don't know you, you are the founder of Upgrading Women Marketing. So, tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about how that came about before we dive deep into the speaking.
Yes. Um, so my origin story in 30 seconds is that I have been a communications expert, marketing, PR, etc. for 15 years until I moved here from Indonesia to England. And I could not find a single soul who would hire me. So I hired myself and built Upgrading Women Marketing. And now I hire people who would otherwise not be hired because they don't have the pedigree, they don't have the, network, but they have the talent. And I see talent as global, but access isn't. So I go out of my way to find great talent in all corners of the world. And together we serve feminists in business. Oh, by the way, I hire only women.
Yes, yeah, and good on you for that. I have to say though, obviously I've seen you speak a couple of times, and your story is quite incredible. And when you get on stages and in front of audiences to talk about where you are now,
Mm,
you people won't understand how you are where you are now when they look at where you came from, because you obviously have this amazing background in Indonesia of being in the luxury brand side, or and you talk about the corner office and being this sort of
yeah.
high flyer, and then
Mm,
suddenly you ended up visaless in a
yeah.
strange country, having to start all over again. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit in a nutshell
Yes.
that's
Yeah. So if you want to double click on that, not only it was um well, the background of my story is the COVID pandemic. And I'm sure everyone has their own story of what happened during that horrible time. But, but my story is that I had to leave my homeland and move to my husband's homeland, which is this Great Britain. Um, Unfortunately, again, because of the pandemic and everything is on lockdown, I couldn't secure a visa, even though I did give birth to three British children. And yeah, I, I, and therefore I could not even apply for a job. And once I did get it, 13 months after I landed, um, no one was willing to give me a chance because on on paper I look like I have been jobless for a while, and that's it's quite ironic, obviously. Um, so I found myself jobless. I wouldn't say homeless, but it was not even easy for us to find a landlord that would allow us to rent their property because, again, jobless, visaless, and all that. So it's like um, the night before Christmas, nativity.
hellish.
No room at the inn.
No. So what happened then in Indonesia to put you in that position? Because you were, as I say, sort of high flying
Mm,
your game
yeah.
out there. So what then? I know obviously the pandemic, but you're out there with a British husband, three children,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
and then
So
suddenly there's images of you over here in the snow.
exactly. So the reason is the pandemic itself. So my husband was employed as an expat um, in a luxury medication, not medication, magazine slash publication. um, and because it was everything is on lockdown, there's no activities. And luxury publications depend a lot on events, like when is the next Rolls Royce launch? When is Chanel going to host a fashion event? So because there's no such thing going on, the actual business model doesn't work. And the first people to be let go is, of course, the expats. So that's, and again, for me, at the time, there was not a good opportunity to find remote work. At the time, no one, everyone was still figuring out how to work Zoom. So it's not like today's job market where you literally can apply for any position for in any place, really. So at the time, I had to be plucked out of um, the city or the country where my reputation was already established. And even if I could work remotely for an Indonesian company, then the salary I'll be making will be Indonesian salary, which is basically not gonna cut it to live in the UK.
Mm. No, it's an incredible story. It really is. And it is amazing when you think only 4 years ago that we were all sort of in that situation. And I certainly had never used Zoom before that. And so everybody was sort of still thinking, I don't think I ever worked really probably more than 10 miles from my home before lockdown. And now, like you said earlier, we're all a global brand, aren't we?
Yeah, that's
Which is incredible.
amazing. And I think, well, there's always a silver lining in everything. But of course, I respect that I have lost uh, best friends and family to COVID. But at the same time, the pandemic actually opened a lot of doors and windows of opportunities that we knew was possible before because the technology is there. It's not like they only created Zoom the day before COVID, right? The technology is there, but human is so afraid to change that there's no quick adoption, and people are still flying across the globe just to attend, a 2 hour meeting. And that 2 hour meeting could have been an hour meeting without the chit chat
Yeah.
if we want to really be productive, right? So at least we can go home an hour early to see our family. So back then, everyone actually was burning out,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And
And
yeah, absolutely. And it would have taken us a long time without the pandemic to, well, I don't know whether we would have ever have adopted this way of working had it not
yes,
have been for the pandemic. I think,
yes,
yes, the technology was there, but it just accelerated it like you wouldn't believe. So,
exactly. It flipped.
yeah.
And I think because us humans, as species, we're always um, psychologically, we're always afraid of change because
Yeah.
comfort zone, etc. But our lizard brain, which is still there, we know we have to survive as species. So when thing hits the fan, we know that, okay, all right, we're gonna we're gonna do this, and suddenly everything and everyone innovate. Like the factory that usually make lipstick suddenly makes hand sanitizer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it was really empowering to hear such stories because, um, well, to balance out the death toll that every day we had to, like, okay, today's death toll is 1 million. It's it's like so horrible that is the news, right? Um, but the uplifting news that people are coming together, people are trying to find ways to cope, to then help each other's help their neighbors. Remember, if your neighbor is shielding, you would shop the groceries for them.
Yeah.
All these really nice and uplifting stories. That was how I, to be honest with you, how I try to keep my mental health.
Yes.
Um, if you
Yeah.
don't look for those positive stories, I don't think I would come out of the pandemic. Um,
No.
with
No,
sanity at
I
all.
absolutely. And I have to say, one of my ways of keeping my sanity was to start a podcast. So I started my podcast in lockdown, and it was literally just to talk to people. Please talk to me. And so I just organised, and I was talking about creativity. I was talking about something that I love doing. So that would never had it not have been for lockdown. But before we get on to you building your personal brand from nothing, and obviously stepping on stages in order to do that, if there's anybody out listening, watching us here, then please join us. Join in with your comments or your questions. If you've got anything you'd like to ask, anything you'd like to add, then feel free to drop us a comment, and I will keep my eye on them, and we'll refer to them as we go along. So, Rebecca, then tell me, once you got here and once stuff started settling down a little bit, how did you begin to build a new brand, a personal brand from scratch?
Oh my, from scratch, and already quite a mature age as well. because you, because you can start from scratch when you're, 18 out of college. But definitely for me, I'm quite blessed because communications is my training. Um, that's what I learned in university. So I did have already a cheat sheet in my head that in order to get to where I need to be, this is already the path. So basically I use me as the as the publicist of this brand, Rebecca Leppard. So I use a proper marketing plan. Like I would see myself as the client and me as the consultant. Like, okay, Rebecca, you need to do this, and do that. But the main theme is for me to give as many times to as many people, say yes to every single thing, say yes to everyone who would have me in the room. So for me, it was give, 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 because I think personally, the best sales strategy is being helpful.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I've certainly spent most of my time, my business only started in lockdown again. And that's kind of that's one of the very basic lessons I learned really early on, is that you need to be there of service, giving value, which is what I try to do with my content. So that's how you started speaking to people, making content. What kind of content were you making back then?
Well, if I would read old content, I would probably cringe. But I said that because I know that everyone out there thinking about writing content, publishing something on the internet, thinking that, oh, my first post will have to be like the grand opening. And I tell you, no, it won't. And it's absolutely fine. If anything, your first content has to be the worst content you ever publish. Because A, you are improving, and B, your first content is only going to be viewed by a handful of people, right? It will only matter. The quality will only matter once you have a proper audience. The content at the beginning is just you warming up, building the habit, testing, learning, and evaluating. And eventually, you will form a pattern. And that pattern is, of course, what people call algorithm. But even magazines like printed, newspaper, they have an algorithm, as in they are serving a certain type of people. That's why when I got here, it was obviously locked down. So all we could do was just walk in the park and be socially distant. And I remember meeting these two lovely ladies at the church ground, and one of the things that she asked that I didn't know was quite a loaded question was, do you read the Telegraph or the Guardian? So
Ooh,
now that I know what it means, but back then I was like, newspaper, the news is the same, uh, but not in this country, right?
no,
Uh, exactly. So that is how I look at it. The
that's how
same
it's.
thing, the same story, the way you present it from your perspective, your point of view, you will attract a certain type of audience. And eventually you will know, oh, okay, so people who are attracted to my content are this kind of people. And that's how I formulated it. At the very beginning, my content was very much educational, talking about communications as a leader, how to communicate effectively, and all that. So at the beginning, a lot of HR leaders follow me on LinkedIn. And then the lockdown was lifted. We can all, gather for more than 6 people. And then I keep going to events and such. And apparently, in person, my vibe, my energy attract a lot of coaches, people in the coaching industry, which is not very many coaches in Indonesia. It's not even an industry over there. Um, and over here, and especially in the US, it is a proper industry and there's a lot of business opportunity in it, obviously. And because the doors are open for me, these coaches are always lovely, always welcoming, and all that. And I began to then, oh, okay, maybe I can help you with your marketing. Maybe I can help you with your personal brand because I have made me my clients, and then I can then make you as the client, as my proper client now. So
Yeah,
yeah, I always say I am my first case study.
yeah. I love that. It's a great way of looking at it, and I love the whole sort of the algorithm, even related to newspapers over here. I mean, it's just you know exactly who you're talking to when you know what paper they read. That is it is really really interesting, and I love the way that you kind of we all pivoted. We all did a bit of a pivot
Hmm.
in
Oh
lockdown,
yeah.
but certainly again with me is I started in one arena, which I
Hmm.
haven't deviated very far, but you begin to realize who it is that you're attracting and who it is that you can
Yeah.
work with well and who you want to work with. Who are your tribe, who are the
Yeah.
people that sit with you, that sit well with your values, and those are the people that you want to really sort of work towards attracting
Yes.
more with your content. So that's great.
Yes.
So when was the first time? I mean, obviously you were out in spaces with people. When were you
Hmm.
sort of asked to speak? When was the sort of the first time that kind of happened
Oh,
over here?
um, for
And
me,
in fact, was it something you were used to? Was it something you did in Indonesia? Was it something you did as part of your
oh,
job?
yes. I've been a public speaker since I was 12,
Right.
but in my own native tongue, right? Um, However, in Indonesia, because I work with luxury brands, I work with a lot of uh, foreign countries, foreign audience, and obviously English would be then the language for me to speak with my colleagues, my bosses. So it was a day-to-day thing for me to communicate in English, long before I married an English. But yeah, the speaking itself, I have always been articulate, as you would say. Yeah, since I was 12, I delivered the valedictorian speech, um, and and I did drama. I wrote play. I do a lot of creative stuff. So I have no qualms about being in front of people. And when when I became director of PR, not only that I have to talk to a lot of people in public, but I have to talk in front of camera when there's a crisis happening, and I have to give a statement.
Uh-huh.
Because yeah, because there's a few incidents like some scandalous thing happened in the hotel that I work for. And of course, it's like there's a celebrity scandal I had to comment on. Of course, I didn't comment. But you're not allowed to say just no comment. You have to say something, right? So I think the biggest pressure for me is not a stage in front of a stage in a stadium, but in front of news camera because it's the news. And there's a lot of actual corporate liability that is attached to every
Yeah,
single word you say, right? So yeah, so having that high pressure job, there was a bomb exploding as well, like about 1 kilometer from the hotel. And I had to give a statement because then the city was just absolutely dead because of it. Tourism is stopped, da 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 da. Um, so yeah, in that respect, I got a lot of training. And then when I got to England, of course, it's a different story because um, I realized marrying an English, the vernacular is different, but moving here to England, I had to like stop and really ask, like, what do you mean, coach? A bus? Why don't you just say a bus? And all of the you know how like neighbors would say hello to you and they would say, "You're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am all right. What do you think? Do you see it? Do I have blood?" You know, even the day to day, the words that you know in the dictionary,
yeah,
the meaning is different. The repartee is different. What is considered polite is different. So I had to go through a lot of that.
yeah,
Um, and and of course, because every one of us has personality, so my personality, my native tongue, plus the English and the English people,
yeah,
and of course, because well, here in Southampton and in London, we're quite diverse. Then there's another layer of the subculture, the mixed
yeah,
culture, and all of that.
yeah,
So I had to really try to navigate my way into being in not in people's good books, but being understood. So when I am voicing my opinion about things, they understand where I'm coming from.
yeah.
And
I mean,
of course, because I
that culture argument is a big one, and I realised that when I was working with Shelley Rostland for the Creator Day talk that you were on that stage too, and she's from
yeah.
South Africa. It was only when we
Hmm.
were putting the two together that I suddenly she came across. She had exactly the same thing, even though
Yeah.
she is a native English
Hmm.
speaker. When she came to live over here, there were certain things that she just didn't
Yeah.
get. She doesn't get pantomime. She doesn't, because of those things, those cultural differences. They are,
Yeah.
and it's now we are global. Now we are speaking to the world. We're not just speaking to our local
Yeah.
community when we're making content. You have to be aware of.
Exactly.
I mean, you were on
Exactly.
that. You were on that Creator Day stage, and I've
Hmm.
seen you speak before, and you do kind of. I just wonder how you. We had a quick chat before we got on the call about
Yeah.
keeping to the time, and you are very sort of free and open with what you're talking about. It's very personal to your life
Yeah.
story. How do you prepare? And if you're given a time slot,
Mm, mm,
how do
mhm.
you work so that you don't end up going over time and making sure that you get all your points across?
Yeah. I'm quite bad with that, if I'm honest. Especially when I'm teaching. So my public speaking, I think 90% of my public speaking is actually me teaching a workshop, facilitating something, um, speaking in a panel about a topic versus be speaking as a keynote. Um, so and I have great passion in teaching, and because when you're teaching, your actual Like the definition of success is that the audience really get what you're teaching. I tend to go overtime when I'm teaching, always. Plus, I use anecdotes, and then there's a Q&A, and I will go a long time answering one thing. But when I give keynotes, I think uh, I would prepare. Well, usually I build the slide that will come, and I want to make the slide as skeleton-like as possible. So it's really, really like I think when I spoke to that stage, I think I had 5 slides for a 20 minute. Um, so the slide for me is just like, okay, that is the first like 20%. That's the pace. So when I know I'm on slide 4, that's towards the end. What I used to be very bad at as well is ending. If it's a good ending, um, because you warm up and you go on a high and you speak and you get into the zone, and then how do you end this, right? How do you get down and conclude the whole thing and really then give the dessert and then leave the stage? So a lot
Yeah.
of people are still, me included, before I was so hyped up in the main course that I didn't leave room for dessert. So
Ah,
that's
yeah.
that's how I'm thinking.
Yeah, you need to get that sorted, because that's your landing. That's where you need to land all
Exactly.
of those messages. That whole 20 minutes needs to come and be
Yes.
encapsulated in that
Yes.
last slide or that last sentence, last
Yes.
paragraph. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of, and I know that from
Yeah.
teaching. We do a lot of teaching kids, and we used to do like little devised pieces, and that was the big thing, is there needs to be an ending, a beginning, a middle, and an
Yes.
end. And that end, you need the audience to know that you have finished without you saying, "I finished now."
The end.
So there
Yeah.
needs, yeah, there needs to be some way. It's almost like the dum dum dums at the end of EastEnders. You
Yeah.
need you need to end on that kind of moment, so the audience are like, "Mm,
Hmm.
okay," and then obviously they want to get to their feet and give you
Yeah.
rapturous applause and things. So
Yes.
yes, it's all about the
Yeah.
ending.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just
And
quickly, because we've practically done our 30 minutes already, um, you have a yearning to be on a TEDx stage, as do we all. So
yes.
what is your idea worth spreading? And are you going to be able to stick to your
So
18 minutes?
yeah, that's I think there's one thing that I really, because personal brand is something that I am really honing in the past few years and really then saved my life basically. Um, I want to talk about how you can use your personal brand to actually change the world. Like how can you be your own brand ambassador for the cause that you really care about?
Yeah.
I really love matching um, marketing with activism because I used to have clients who are NGOs, from Ford Foundation, the World Bank, European Climate Foundation. A lot of missing piece is that people in the nonprofit sector, they don't use the capitalist way of trying to market themselves to get funded,
Mm.
plus also to get people uh, to change their behavior. As simple as, trying to change from a wasteful habit to a really sustainable habit. That's what we want to do, right? But we have to use the marketing genius of the capitalistic world to spread the message of the good. So that is my idea, that you have to
No,
think as an activist, you have to think kind of like a capitalist.
perfect. I've worked for many charities and I absolutely know where you're coming from with that one. Absolutely. Just before we finish then, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody, which is, what, in your opinion, makes a good speaker good and a bad speaker suck?
Empathy. It's ingrained in my brain that in any communications, you communicate with babies, you communicate with governments, you communicate with audience, you have to see it from their point of view. That will inform you how to then package your content, deliver your content. It will instruct you what to wear, how to pose, the volume, everything. It's based on empathy, who you are speaking to. What does your audience find enjoyment, value, and more importantly, their perception of you as a person?
Yeah, perfect. And I assume then that a bad speaker, what makes a bad speaker suck?
That they don't care. They just do a PowerPoint karaoke.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's all about the audience. It's never about you. The audience don't care about you. So brilliant. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca. There is a couple of places that people can come and find you that I have here. There's this one here, which is upgradingwomen.com. And what can people find there?
Well, people will find all the services that me and my team do in the world of marketing. We exclusively serve feminists in business. So if you don't believe in the equality of the sexes, don't even bother visiting my website.
Excellent. And then I've got this one here, which is yourgirlbrand.com.
Yes. Now this is a new product, which is a subscription service for marketing advice, templates, tools, tutorials. So if you want to pick my brain, instead of paying my whole agency and my team to do it, you can do it yourself using my know-how at only £1 a day subscription.
Brilliant. Fabulous. Sounds like perfect. Brilliant value. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if anybody would like to get in contact with me, powertospeak.co.uk, and you can find out all about what I do there, the services and the coaching and the free download that I've just put together. So it's all there. So thank you again, Rebecca, for spending your time with us here for half an hour. It's been fantastic talking to you. And if there's anybody out there watching the replay even, this will go on audio eventually. Leave us a comment or question, and I'll certainly make sure that Rebecca gets anything that you'd like to ask her. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with, Rebecca?
Just let's connect on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. And you are free to DM me with your questions from entrepreneurship, personal branding, marketing your business, juggling mothership and business, and juggling different culture in different places. I'm such an extrovert. I will speak to anyone.
Me too. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys here next week. For now, bye-bye.